Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education. Featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
Welcome back to the Prepped and Polished podcast. Make sure to join our community on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, YouTube. Just type Prepped and Polished and you'll find us. And go to preppedandpolished.com for more info. Sign up for our 1-hour SAT Strategies course, SAT Strategy Secrets. I teach the course. It's free, so check it out. Have a question or reaction during or after the podcast? Submit your question to radio at preppedandpolished.com. Let's get to today's guest. Today's guest is Joani Geltman. Joani has over 30 years of experience working with parents, children, schools, and community groups. She's a clinician, a parenting coach, college professor, and public speaker. Also the author of A Survival Guide to Parenting Teens. On today's podcast, Joani talks about the struggles today's teens face and the struggles today's parents of teens face. And gives us helpful techniques to better our relationship with our teens. Hi, Joani. Thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me.
Can you share with us a bit about your background, maybe some pivotal life moments that brings you here with us today as a speaker, coach, and author for parenting teens?
Sure. Well, I started my career. I have a MSW, a Master of Social Work, and I started my career in a pretty traditional way. I was a therapist. I sat in an office and saw mostly teens and their parents, and then always had some other sort of side job working in schools as a therapist to kids in, usually they were high schools for kids who were having trouble handling the regular programs, so work-study programs, things like that. And I did that for many years, and then I started teaching at Curry College. I teach a lot of freshmen. I teach intro to psychology and human growth and development, and that sort of gave me another sort of opening to understanding and seeing what happens to kids when they leave high school. And then I decided to stop my private practice. It just wasn't feeling right to me, and I was teaching also some graduate school classes at Lesley University, and my students there, I was teaching the adolescent psych portion of the class, and my students, who were mostly older students who were coming back to school to get their degrees, had teenagers, and they would say, Joani, you need to go out and teach this stuff to parents. I go home now and I know what to say to my kids. And it just, a light bulb went off. And so I started about 10 years ago. I've been in the business over 30 years. And about 10 years ago, I basically adapted my adolescent psychology class that I teach to my college students and my graduate students and adapted it for parents. And that's how I started. And I started just going to public libraries and offering it for free. And then 10 years later, I give about 30 talks a year. And I've expanded. So I do this adolescent psychology, the parent version, which gives parents the real understanding of theoretically and biologically and socially what their kids are going through. And then just a lot of practical, what do you do kinds of tips. And it's funny, and I tell lots of stories. I call it infotainment. It's kind of half stand-up, half information. And then I've incorporated some new talks, one called Sexting, Texting, and Social Networking, What's the Parent to Do, and another one on understanding your teen drug and alcohol personalities and understanding as a parent what your own personality is in terms of your kids around that. And then, I started a blog about 4 years ago and started writing that. And then from there, I decided I think I want to write a book. And so I created this book. It's called I just blanked on the title of my own book. Is that weird? What happens when you get old?
Survival
Guide to Parenting Teens. A Survival Guide to Parenting Teens, talking to your kids about sexting, drinking, drugs, and other things that freak you out. And it's 80 standalone tips. It is not a cover-to-cover read. You open the book to something that you need that day. There's one on the homework avoider. There's one on there's millions on sexting and texting, on Facebook, social networking, lots about how to handle a kid with attitude, how to help your kids around curfew issues, really specific, short. And so that's been really exciting to do that. So sort of every few years I do something different. So that's my background.
So the Survival Guide to Parenting Teens can be found on your website. You can purchase that.
Yes, and in Amazon and in Barnes & Noble and any bookstore.
Nice. Now, is parenting teens a matter of survival?
I think so. Because I think parents are oftentimes caught completely by surprise by things that their kids are doing that they did not expect. And they have a certain image of who their kids are and get a little bit into, oh, my kid would never. And then maybe haven't taken the time to prepare their kids for some of those things. And then the never becomes, it happens. And they're completely overwhelmed by the change they see in their kids, even though so much of it is just normal development. And so the survival piece is understanding the theory and the development piece, because once parents understand that this is common to all families, many of the things kids are experimenting with, it takes the personal out of it. And I think that oftentimes parents of teens' feelings get very hurt, and they feel like their kids are pushing them away, which they are, and kids are not listening to them, which they don't. But that's normal. And when they hear that that's normal, it helps them to get through what, is 5, 6, 7 years of change.
Wow. Now, a lot of your talks are giving parenting skills to better deal with their teens, and you mentioned infotainment, humor, storytelling, a goodie bag of helpful techniques. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use infotainment when talking to parents, and how do parents react to it?
Right. Well, I think of myself as a pretty good storyteller. And, after 30 years of working in this business, I've pretty much seen everything there is to see. And I'm also very cognizant of what is just going on in the world of teenagers today. So I'm a constant reader of anything that's written about teens, newspapers, magazines, blogs, so that I'm pretty up on what's going on, what apps are up, how kids are using them. But I have a lot of stories to tell. And so when I tell them, I use, a lot of drama for effect, taking on different voices. And, I want parents to be entertained while they're there. I don't want them to feel like this is just a slog of more, theory and something that's going to go in one ear and out the other. And so I try to keep it, upbeat if I can, and get them laughing. That's important to me. I think laughter is an important part of parenting. You have to have a sense of humor and try not to take every perceived mistake that your kids make as an indictment on their character. And I think oftentimes parents do that. So I want them to lighten up, and you can't do that unless you're light. So I try to do that. And then I keep it very hands-on. I spend, even if I'm giving them some theory about, what's going on in their kids' brains and what's going on in their kids' body, it's always accompanied by some real-life situation, and then a very practical, here's what you say. I'm very big on giving parents the words. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of parents. It just, not everybody were babysitters when they were kids. A lot of times the language of literally, what do I say to my teen so that they will be open to want to hearing what I have to say. And I talk about tone of voice, so that I will go into all the different tones of voices that don't work and then give them the tone of voice that does work. Even just small changes in the way they talk, so literally the sound of their voice, the words that they use can make a huge difference. An example I always say is, kids will come home from school and a parent will say, how did you do in that quiz today? Knowing that the kids had a quiz and maybe they hadn't studied the night before. And so parents are already waiting to hear, that they didn't do well. And then parents could say, well, if you put your phone away, then you'd, be able to have done better on the quiz. And so parents have that also ready for them. And of course the kids know that, so they shut down. So I talked about saying, hey, so how did it and changing the voice, making, your voice sounding more welcoming. So really just small tips like that make a huge difference in parents' lives.
That's amazing. What are some takeaways that parents, tangible takeaways parents get from hearing you? Like just want to get some tips on effective parenting. So you gave us an example.
Yeah, so that was one example. So another one is I use, it's sort of my stock philosophy, and it's called I get it moments. And what happens, I think, with parents is they often are so angry by the time they found out their kid did something. Maybe they didn't get home on curfew on time, or they found out that they've been texting all night long because they finally checked their phone bill and they see that their kids have been texting, late into the night and early into the morning. And so what ends up happening is parents get angry and say, how many times did I tell you to get on that phone? And so one of the things that I try to talk with parents is using what I call I get it moments. Everybody in life wants to be understood. And when they feel understood, then they don't need to get on the defensive. So instead of getting angry at a kid when they've done something wrong, let's use, getting in late for curfew. So a parent, instead of saying, how many times you've been late every weekend and you're grounded next weekend, starting with, honey, I get it. You love being out with your friends. It's easy to lose track of time. What can we do differently so that I can help you get in on time? Which is a very different message. A lot of times parents will express something they don't like. You're not allowed to, but they don't understand what's at the basis of why kids often screw up. And it's because they lose track of time. They live in the moment. And what they really need is help, when they're in those moments, to pay attention to what they need to do, which, being out with their friends is time. So parents tend to go right to the punishment place. Well, I said if you don't get in on time, you're grounded. As opposed to, I get you love being with your friends. Let's figure out a strategy so when you're out, we can find something that will remind you, and then you get the strategy. And that's the other thing that it's really about. I feel like the parenting a teen is all about strategic planning. And oftentimes parents will say, you're not allowed to drink. You're not allowed to do drugs. You're not allowed, there's a lot of you're not allowed, and there are the rules of the house, which there should absolutely be. But there's two parts to that. Here's the rule, and then the second part is let's figure out how you'll be successful in doing what you need to do. So the strategize, you're not allowed to drink. Well, when a kid is out with his friends or her friends, and they're at a party, and everybody's got, water bottles full of vodka, just saying you're not allowed to is not a strategy. So I work a lot with helping parents with starting with an I get it moment. I get when you're out with your friends, there's going to be booze, whether parents are home or they're not home. Let's figure what you can do to stay safe. And then I teach them some strategies that they can use with their kids to have the conversation. And so this way, kids leave the house and there's something in their head about, okay, when I'm there with my friends, and maybe that will be in there. Rather than, kids don't remember that they're going to get, grounded if they come home with alcohol in their breath. That's not a deterrent. Research shows that punishment does not change behavior. So I want to help parents. So using I get it moments, helping them to teach their kids strategies, not just you're not allowed to. Those are two big ones.
Those are huge strategies. I was going to flip the coin and ask what bad parenting looks like, but can we just simply deduce that a bad parent is someone who doesn't use these I get it moments?
No, I never like to use the word bad parent because I think everybody is working so hard to want to keep their kids safe, and productive and successful. I think all parents want to do that. I think they have difficulty in finding, again, this is not easy stuff. And parenting is very different than it was. This is the first generation of parents who are experiencing things with their teenagers that they themselves did not experience as teenagers. So they, maybe did some drinks. They probably, had some sex. They, they talked bad to their parents. They had an attitude. They get a lot of that stuff. But the whole technology piece, which has added a whole other layer to parenting today, parents they're just clueless in an understandable way. Not like, they're not thinking. They just don't know what to do because they didn't have any experience. Or maybe they had parents who were very strict and they knew they didn't want to be very strict with their kids, but they've gone way too far in the other direction. Or kids who parents who had very permissive parents and felt like they needed more structure, and now they've gone. A lot of times it's that they're reacting to something they grew up with, but are going way too far, in the other direction. So I don't like to say bad parenting, but I think it just doesn't come naturally, and that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because parents are hungry to have great relationships with their kids. I think all parents want to have great relationship with their kids, and when they see that, that wonderful connection they used to have becoming an armed camp, it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. So it's understanding that your kids are changing, understanding that they are doing things they've never done before, their kids, and they're going to make lots and lots of mistakes. So an acceptance of, and so I think a lot of his parents have too high expectations. They expect that because they've taught their kids the right way to be and act in the world, that will just continue. And that's, they may have done that and done a great job of it when their kids were in elementary school, but everything is up for grabs when they hit the teen years, because kids are finally saying, wait, I'm not going to just take what you told me and go do it. Now I want to see, I want to do something different. And so parents have to expect that their kids are going to want to do things differently than them. And a lot of parents don't have tolerance for that. They're sort of my way or the highway, and that has been comfortable for them. And now they have to adjust, and it's hard.
Definitely. I'm glad you brought up the technology piece, because cyberbullying is a growing problem. 282,000 students are bullied each month in the U.S., and 50% online. So you got teenagers who struggle with bullying. You got moms who have teenagers struggle with bullying. Do you deal with that topic a little?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the thing that's so interesting with kids is that even though so many kids are bullied online, and when I use bullying, that can take into account kids who are feeling excluded from, it doesn't. I think bullying, the truest form is, kids who are terrible things are said about them. But many teens, just in their daily lives, as they're on social networking and they're on group texts and they're on group videos, and they can be included and excluded in the same conversation, and kids might say something mean about them in that moment. So many kids, it may not be a systemic daily barrage of bullying, but most kids feel some form of that as they move through adolescence. And it's the problem, the hardest part of this is that kids are just gluttons for punishment, so that they leave themselves open to being treated that way, because they are so afraid that if they don't stick with whatever the most common form of whatever their friends are using, whether it's group texts or group videos or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is that their kids are into, it's like, instead of just blocking certain people from their I always tell parents to help their kids, for the kids who are being unfriendly and bullying, is to block them so that at least they don't see it. Because what a bully wants is to get someone to respond to them. And if you're not available to them to be bullied, then you take away their ammunition. And it is just, but kids are afraid to do that. And so parents, sometimes I tell them that you have to do that. You take responsibility for blocking some kids from their phones, from their texting, from their, and that's why parents need to be involved. They need to see what's going on their kids' sites.
Nice.
So that they can give them some protection.
Yeah, that's great.
They're not going to speak it themselves. That's part of the problem. Is kids just will not, because they're so afraid that if they close people out of their life, that they're going to miss out on something bigger. So it's very so sad and difficult.
That's complex.
Yeah.
What new projects are you working on now? Any new books? You present.
Yeah, and I'm going to hopefully be starting, some sort of more videos of showing parents, in live time. Not live meaning in the moment, but taping them of things like teen-proofing your home, which is making your home safe and your yards, so that when kids have parties, you know where they're going to be hiding the booze, and how they get access to homes, and trying to make it visual. I think some parents, again, just don't think their kids are that sneaky. And I think so I think sometimes it's better. So I'm hoping to move into some videos, live, sort of me out in the, literally in the field, making some videos about that, and just sort of more with the book. And I'm hoping to eventually get some kind of a web series. I'm working towards that. So I just feel like parents need to see it. It's not just reading it or hearing it. I think they really just need to visualize what I'm talking about.
And what do you enjoy most about your work?
It's like I have a lot of parents who come who are, serial attenders. They kind of follow me from community to community, or oftentimes the same community will have me back, every few years. And I think the most gratifying is when a parent will come up to me, and maybe they came to my talk when their kid was 13, and then now their kids are 16, and they'll come back and they'll say, Joani, I use your I get it moments all the time, and oh my God, you saved my life. Sometimes it's just a small adjustment that needs to be made, or I try to really watch the tone of my voice. They will feed back to me what they took away from a talk, and that is unbelievable. I mean, when I feel like, oh yeah, it made a difference. It's very exciting. Or I was at a book reading last year, and a dad had bought my book, and before he came to the reading and had read it, and he came in, and all these pages were folded in, the ones that he had read, and he shows me the book, and he said, Joani, I just tagged everything, and I need you to sign the book. It just to help me. I can't tell you how much it helped me. And
Nice.
Obviously that's
amazing.
that's amazing. Yeah.
And how can we find you, see you live, work with you?
And also I do parent coaching. I probably forgot to mention that too.
Coaching.
I do parent coaching, and it's a very different model. I decided that I didn't want to sit in an office anymore. It just wasn't, I just sort of stopped doing clinical therapy, probably 20 years ago. And when I started this, my public speaking, I also started doing parent coaching. So it's sometimes just one session. So a parent will call me or email me. They see me at a talk, or they've read my book, and I work with parents all over the country, and they will, they have a particular issue, or that maybe there was a crisis. And then I ask parents to email me and give me sort of a summary of what it is that they need help with, any kind of background history that would be helpful to me about moves or divorce, or anything that I would need. And then I kind of study that. I have that, and I read it over many times. And then when we talk, so sometimes for people who live in the Boston area, I will meet them halfway between where I am and where they are. I don't work out of an office, so if they're close to me, I'll go to their homes. Or if they're further away, I sort of have my South Shore office at the Barnes & Noble in Braintree, and my North Shore office is a Starbucks in Woburn, and I meet people from Weston and Waltham at the Weston Hotel. And so I have all
Nice.
these places I found, and so I meet with parents that way, and if they're not comfortable, we just do a phone consultation. And then basically for that hour, I just tell them what to do. I've thought about it. I give them a strategy. I've been doing this for so many years that I really can get a sense of their kid from reading what they've written and asking a few more questions when I meet with them. And then I send them home, and I send them home with a plan, and I may never hear from them again. Or they may call me a few months later, or sometimes years later. I've often had people come back, that particular problem got resolved, and now they've got something new. So it's a very different, it's not, you're not signing up for weekly counseling. It's really a consultation. And I feel like parents need on the spot, tell me what to do. I'm in a crisis. I don't know what to do. And so that I can do. I work with parents all over the country for that. So they can go to my website and contact me by email or phone for that.
Okay, awesome.
I have lots of public speaking, and in the fall I'll have my new schedule up of, as far as I know so far.
So we can go to your website to
Yeah,
get
so you can
that.
go to the website, and I'll have posted where I'm going to be.
Okay, so the bridge from teenage years to make that leap to young adulthood is exciting. It's a confusing time. Do you have any advice for a teen who might be on that road?
Yeah, well, I have advice for the parents of the teens.
Yeah, let's go.
Because what I see is in my college students is many of them are unprepared for taking on the responsibility of their own life. And, there's been the helicopter parenting, there's been lots of terms to explain how much we love our kids and how much we like to do for them. And so they get to college, they have no idea how to manage money. I just did a blog on that last week. It was a great column in the Globe by a girl who's in college now, and how she talked about her first experience of going to her ATM and having no money in there when she was in college, and realizing that she was just it becomes like magic money. And there's a tip in the book about how to manage money. So teaching your kids how to manage money, giving them a set amount of money, putting it in their ATM machine before they go to college, so that if they run out on money, if they decided they wanted to spend money on buying something at the Gap and going out to eat with their friends, and then Saturday comes around, they have no money left in their account, then a parent's like, well, because I encourage parents to sit down and say, let's see what you spend in a week, and I'll add a little to that, so you don't, and then if they run out, then it's like, gee, I'm sorry that happened. I guess you'll have to wait, till we put money in on Monday. Mm-hmm. And not put the extra money in early so that they can, but have them face what is it like when you run out of money? How do you budget? So money management, time management. A lot of kids come from homes where the parents have taken all the control of, and this is when you're going to do your homework, and this is what you have to shut your phone off, and by the time kids get to college, the number one thing they tell me, because I start every semester with setting goals and what will be your challenges to be able to meet your goals. And the kids all say, shutting their phones off, getting off the internet, not being enticed by friends who want to go out when they have work to do. And then I make them sit down and come up with a strategy. Okay, what are you going to do when kid walks into your dorm room and says, oh, come on, you can finish later. And then they come to class unprepared the next day. So it's helping them before that, not doing it for them, not telling them what to do, but saying, let's together figure out a plan for you to be successful in school. What do you need to do? And that should sort of start end of junior year, senior year, when kids should be pretty much mostly responsible for their own work. And parents should not be rescuing and editing and rewriting and, doing things because they want their kids to do. A lot of parents will be way over involved in their kids' school experience, and then the kids get to college and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, Joani, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Alexi.
Awesome.
Good luck with your kids. Thank you.
And this wraps up our show today with speaker, educator, and author of A Survival Guide to Parenting Teens, Joani Geltman. To learn more about Joani's amazing work, check out joanigeltman.com, www.joanigeltman.com. And for our other amazing talks, go back to number 38 with Jeff Lakin on the power of mentoring teens. It's number 38. Go back to number 80 for an amazing talk with Tammy Walsh of Teen Wisdom on her work with teenage girls. And you can go back a couple episodes back to number 84 with Julie Lithcott-Hames on how to raise a young adult. These are all must-listens. And then, one more, check out my conversation with Jeff Levin, Empowering Adolescents. That's a classic episode. It is number 11. We're on number 92. So to access today's podcast, number 92, as well as all of our podcasts, go to preppedandpolished.com/podcast, and make sure to be on the lookout for our next tutoring podcast, episode number 93. Thank you for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.